Punishment has been a cornerstone of human civilization for centuries, often reflecting the values, fears, and authority of the societies that impose them. While modern penal systems have become more humane, the history of punishment reveals a chilling range of torturous methods that seem to defy human decency. From the ancient empires to the Middle Ages, punishments were crafted to instill fear, enforce laws, and break the will of the accused. Let's take a look back at some of the most horrific and agonizing punishments throughout history. A piercing legacy of terror. Impalement, one of the earliest known forms of torture, was used for both punishment and to strike fear into the hearts of the population. A long, sharp stake would be driven through the victim's body in the most gruesome manner, either horizontally or vertically. Ancient civilizations like the Assyrians perfected this method, while infamous figures such as Vlad the Impaler, Prince of Wallachia, gave it an air of historical notoriety. In Vlad's case, victims were slowly impaled on long stakes, often taking days to die from the agony and exposure. The method was particularly terrifying because it left the body on display, often positioned outside city walls, a grim reminder to all of the consequences of defiance. The strangling mechanism of Spain. The garrote was a terrifying method of execution that gained notoriety in Spain, particularly during the Spanish Inquisition, when it was used to punish heretics and others who defied the established order. This brutal device involved the victim being seated on a platform, with their neck positioned into a hole in an upright post. A rope would then be tightened using a stick, gradually strangling the person to death. While the garrote was not only a painful and slow method of execution, it also served as a grim symbol of the Catholic Church's authority and its insistence on maintaining strict religious conformity. The practice was used extensively in the 19th century, especially during times of political unrest in Spain. During the Spanish Civil War and earlier uprisings, it became the go-to execution method, chosen for its effectiveness in ensuring that the punishment was both public and permanent. The garrote's horrific reputation became so ingrained in Spanish culture that it was even formally authorized by the king himself as the standard form of capital punishment. The fear it instilled among the population was not just about the excruciating pain, but also about the certainty of death that followed, further cementing its place in Spanish history as a tool of terror. The breaking wheel. The breaking wheel, also known as the Catherine wheel, was a punishment designed to break the body and spirit of the condemned. It became infamous in medieval Europe, where it was used as both a means of execution and a spectacle of punishment. Victims would be tied to a large wheel with their limbs spread out, and then beaten mercilessly until their bones were shattered. The executioner would either use clubs or the wheel itself to break the victim's limbs, which were often crushed with force. What made this method even more horrifying was the public nature of the punishment. Entire villages would gather to watch as the prisoner endured their final moments of life, creating a gruesome public display. The idea was to not only punish the individual, but to send a powerful message to others about the fate awaiting those who broke the law. Some prisoners, such as Jonah in the 14th century, survived for days in this agonizing position, slowly succumbing to their injuries. The spectacle of the breaking wheel served to instill fear in the hearts of common people, reminding them of the extreme consequences of defiance. The rat punishment. Perhaps one of the most disturbing punishments in history involved the use of rats. This horrific form of torture is said to have been popularized by Emperor Nero in ancient Rome. The victim's stomach would be exposed, and a bucket of rats would be placed on top. The rats, desperate for food, would gnaw their way through the body to escape the heat applied to the bottom of the bucket. The sensation of rats burrowing through their flesh was meant to break the spirit of the victim. Over time, this method of torment evolved, with medieval Germany taking it to an even more horrifying level. In these later iterations, rats were placed in a metal cage with hot coals beneath them. The rats would seek escape through the victim's body, causing an excruciatingly slow and painful death. The torment caused by these rats was not just physical, but psychological, as the victim faced the inevitability of their demise while being powerless to stop it, stretching the prisoner's limits. One of the most infamous forms of torture in history The rack was designed to stretch the victim's body beyond its natural limits. First used in 1420 by the Duke of Exeter, it became a popular instrument of torture in medieval Europe. The victim would be strapped to a wooden frame, with their arms and legs tied to rollers at each end. As the executioner turned the rollers, the prisoner's body would be pulled, causing bones to snap, tendons to tear, and joints to dislocate. The primary goal of the rack was to extract confessions, particularly during the reign of King Henry VIII, when it was used to interrogate traitors and suspected enemies of the state. The victim's suffering was prolonged as their body was stretched, making it one of the most agonizing forms of torture. The torment was slow, and many victims succumbed to their injuries or died from the agony before ever confessing. The rack's notoriety was built on its cruelty and its ability to break the will of even the most resilient individuals. The Iron Maiden. The Iron Maiden, a terrifying device with spikes on its interior, has captured the imagination of many throughout history. The victim would be placed inside the coffin-like structure, where they would slowly be impaled by the spikes. However, there's debate over whether the Iron Maiden was ever used during the Middle Ages, as historical evidence suggests it may have been a later invention. The earliest account of the Iron Maiden appeared in the 16th century, and it wasn't until much later that it was presented as a symbol of medieval cruelty. The Judas Cradle. The Judas Cradle was one of the most cringe-worthy punishments of the medieval era. Victims would be forced to sit on a pyramid-shaped structure, their body weight causing intense pressure. The pain could be so excruciating that it was often used to extract confessions from suspected heretics or enemies of the state. The device became infamous during the Spanish Inquisition, with countless victims enduring this agonizing torture. The excruciating pain was compounded by the mental torment of knowing that death was often a slow, inevitable outcome. The Iron Chair. The Iron Chair was another dreadful medieval torture device. Victims would be strapped into a metal chair, and a fire would be lit underneath. As the victim slowly roasted alive, their screams of agony would reverberate across the dungeon. Over time, spikes were added to the chair's back, further prolonging the suffering. The Iron Chair was used for a variety of crimes, including adultery and witchcraft. It was designed to ensure that the victim's suffering was prolonged for as long as possible. The Spanish Donkey. Known as the chevalet in French, the Spanish donkey was a brutal form of medieval punishment. The victim would be forced to sit on a triangular wooden structure with a sharp, pointed top. Weights would be tied to their ankles, ensuring that the sharp point inflicted slow, excruciating pain on the victim. The punishment was designed to humiliate and torture, often leaving the victim permanently incapacitated. The Pair of Anguish. The Pair of Anguish was a cruel device used during the medieval period. This pear-shaped instrument would be inserted into the body, typically through the rectum, and then slowly expanded using a screw mechanism. The agonizing pressure would force the victim to confess to whatever the interrogators demanded. This device was often used during religious persecutions, forcing prisoners to endure unspeakable pain while under the threat of further punishment. The Heretic's Fork. The Heretic's Fork was a small but extremely painful device. It consisted of two prongs, one positioned beneath the chin and the other at the sternum. The victim would be forced to keep their head still, or the prongs would dig into their flesh, causing extreme pain. This device was primarily used to silence prisoners or extract confessions from those accused of heresy. The torture could last for hours, forcing the prisoner into a painful, unmoving position. The dark history of punishment. Throughout history, punishment was not merely a means of enforcing the law, it was a tool of terror. From impalement to the Heretic's Fork, each device served a singular purpose: to break the spirit of the accused and remind the population of the consequences of defiance. While modern penal systems have shifted towards more humane practices, these methods remain a dark reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty. As we reflect on these gruesome practices, we can only hope that future generations never again repeat such atrocities. If this dive into history's darkest punishments shocked you, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more chilling tales from the past. Stay tuned as we continue exploring humanity's most twisted moments. Don't forget, If you want more eye-opening videos, like and subscribe.